We live in strange times at the moment, don't we? I think we've all worked out that the times that we're in are a little peculiar. And I've been sitting here questioning what's going on, why the government, for example, are continually pushing us or offering us a whole load of stuff that actually we don't want. And one of the things that I've learnt through all of this is, although they say that they are going to give us these things, actually it is a question of whether we consent to having these things. So if we really don't want digital IDs or 15-minute cities, if we really don't want to go towards net zero, if we really don't believe that global warming is the problem of mankind at the moment, I personally believe that we can say no, that we don't consent, that it is as simple as that, that you can get yourself out of the system. But we've been led to believe over the years that there is only one system and one system alone, and that is the only way to do things. But I don't think that's true. I just think we have to broaden our mind. Now, one of the problems is, of course, having an open mind to other solutions and other ways of doing things can, of course, get a lot of criticism. So not so long ago, I happened to say that I didn't think that I would be voting. And I didn't vote in the local elections. In fact, I aim to deregister completely, although it isn't that easy, from the electoral system so that in the next general election, I don't take part in it at all. Well, one of my viewers, of course, decided that that was not a good thing and got in touch with me to tell me. Now, in this world at the moment, having a difference of opinion, having a different thought than perhaps the mainstream narrative, having a different way of doing things, having your own decisions, it seems is now not a good thing, because people like to tell you you're wrong, or they call you names. I was in fact called a shill, and I still don't really understand what a shill is, although a few people have tried to explain it to me. But the point was, when I said that I wasn't going to vote and I didn't believe in voting, he got very upset, and so exchanges of emails happened over that. Now, I do try not to accelerate these. In the end, I just think, well, what's the point? You know, each of us can have our own opinion. We can still be friends. It's just sometimes people won't leave it at that. And then they'll, as I say, resort to things like name calling and things because you're not doing what they want you to do. So when it comes to this voting, I did say to this gentleman, I said to him, well, the thing is about voting is who gives you the power to vote anyway? And if the power is coming down from the government to say, well, we'll give you the permission to vote in the next government, one has to ask yourself, who gave the government the power to give us, the people, the power to vote in the first place? Well, who was that? Was it the people? Was it the king? And if it was the king, who gave the king the power to let the government give us the power to vote for the next government, if you see what I mean? So it all becomes a little bit complicated, doesn't it? I mean, ultimately, the power has to be with the people because people came first. Now, you could argue that God came first, of course, or the eternal universe, or the source of everything, or whatever created life. You could argue that that came first, and I have no dispute with that, of course, because clearly something beyond man, whatever it is and whatever you believe in, came before man. And then man evolved and man needed to get himself organised. And then man said, you know, there's a lot of us. Maybe we need a body of people to help us. And so they sort of came up with a concept of putting some number of wise men in charge. Now, over the years, of course, this has been abused. Let's take 1066, for example, when the Normans came in. Just as an example, we could, of course, be talking about when the Romans came in or when the Vikings came in. But using 1066, because everybody knows that date, hopefully, the Normans came in and William the Conqueror called the Conqueror, not the Bastard. He was a bastard, but then he conquered and he changed his name. Not he changed it, I suppose everybody else changed it. But there he is. He is the Conqueror, and he decided that this land was his. And then he would divide it up to his barons and what have you, those people who helped him, the earls and whatnot. And they all had a swathe of land, but of course it was all held for the king. Now, who gave the king the permission to have the land in the first place? And then when you look at who we have looking after the landowners, or rather looking after the landowners looking after the land, some of those are still direct descendants, believe it or believe it not, who go back to the Normans. But apart from the mighty sword and being rather brutish and saying, well, actually, we're in charge, who gave them permission? Did the source, God, whatever it is, the eternal universe, give the Normans the permission to do that? Now, it's a moot point, and we can argue that till the houses come in. So what I'm saying is, who gives the king or the parliament, the houses of commons, the government itself, the right to give the ordinary everyday people who've been living on the land, who crawled out of the swamp at some point and have just gone about their business, who gives the government and all these so-called elites the right to tell us to do anything? I mean, the people put them in power. So it all goes back, in my mind, to the people, which is why I feel that we have the power to decide whether we want to vote or not. And if we don't vote, then how does that legitimise any government at all? If, for example, at the next general election, whenever it is, nobody voted at all, what would happen? Would we be able to just say, look, nobody's voted for you, you don't have a mandate of anything? Because in my mind, there is nothing now. There is nothing that the government can offer us, seeing as they've been pretty dictating, pretty tyrannical. They put us through the last 3 years of misery. They've been pushing things down which seem to have come from think tanks beyond the government. The MPs, no matter how many times people write to their MP, no longer seem to be representing the people anymore. It's as if they've suddenly got above their station. They no longer serve us. Who have we got? Who will actually become a government that would serve us? I mean realistically. Now, I know that people have got so waylaid in thinking, but this is the only system. But is it? This is why I'm prepared to put my head above the parapet and say, well, perhaps we actually need a completely new system. I'm not saying topple the government. I'm not saying that we need to oust them. I just think that perhaps if we don't vote for them, they cannot exist. They could not then carry on. We would need to, as people, perhaps vote for a different system that using democracy, trial by jury, the rights of people to come together and decide for themselves what they want, I think is potentially the best way forward. It's just an opinion, you understand. Of course, we're so indoctrinated with this system of having a government and the House of Commons and all of that. But remember, there was a time when that didn't exist. And when that didn't exist, and perhaps before we had kings that were then lording it all up with the power of the sword, perhaps before that there were times when people just managed to work out locally in their area what worked for them. And I suppose in a way that's what I'm suggesting. Now, you may have heard that I've noticed and have been approached that there is a gentle bubbling up from the population, that people are dissatisfied with the government. They are dissatisfied with how they're being governed, and that there is a sort of great rising, a peaceful rising, mind you, of people deciding, do you know what, at grassroots level, we're just going to go and do our own thing. We're going to decide for ourselves. We don't need these councils who are being employed in a corporation by a government, which is another corporation, all for profit, to earn money from the people. We can, and I've said this so many times, and I feel it's worth repeating, like advertising, a drip, drip message. that we are sovereign people, that we are responsible for ourselves and that we need to take back that responsibility. And I know that when I see the comments, people will be laughing at me and going, oh, but Richard, you know, you can't change anything. We just have to roll over. We have to take it. That's such a defeatist attitude in my book. In my book, people have the right to go forward and decide for themselves what their lives are going to be about. After all, our life is a gift from God or the eternal universe, or the fact that even if you just believe it was a chance that life sparked into existence, it's an amazing gift that we as individual people, as individual sovereign people, however we want to gather ourselves together in a community and do things, have that right, if you like, to just live how we want. We're not to be enslaved. We're not to be stuck to a state paying taxes in which a government will then go and fund wars or terrorist activities or other things. That's not the destiny of a living man or a living woman, at least not how I think. Now, you can disagree with me and say, but there's no system. There's no system for that. That would be anarchy. One rule for everybody. Everybody has their own dominion and their own domain. Well, we can organise ourselves. We can construct ourselves into a new life. I'm absolutely convinced. We just have to get out of the mindset that we have to have this one body, a government, a House of Commons, a House of Lords, that all seems to be pretty much against the people itself. In the past, it may have been useful and it may have worked, but I'm just questioning, is there another system? Is there another way of looking at things? Should we not be investigating this? As grassroots organisations are deciding to take back the responsibility to grow their own food, to do their own thing, to become sovereign people, to go about their business without interference from people who want to penalise them all the time and make money and extract money from them, I'm sure that there is another way. And if you've got ideas and you're positive and your outlook is good, I'm sure that together we can come up with another way and we can make this world a far, far better place.